nping, which comes with nmap, which allows you to execute a DOS attack. Another software that allows you to execute a DOS attack, which we have seen earlier, is actually Metasploit. Metasploit is fabulous. We have seen that Metasploit has hundreds of different modules that you can use, and each module allows you to execute a particular type of attack or a particular type of query. So Metasploit has something known as a SYN flooding module, which allows you to execute the SYN flooding attack that we have discussed earlier against the victim's computer. So in a SYN flood, what happens, I'll quickly recap. The attacker sends infinite number of SYN packets or new connection requests to the victim's computer. And the victim's computer, whenever it receives a SYN packet or a connection request, it will allocate a certain amount of memory to that connection request. Right? And after a certain amount of time, if you keep sending SYN packets, if you keep sending connection requests to the victim's computer, at some point of time, all the memory available on that computer gets used up, gets choked, gets clogged. And that is what we are trying to do. So let me now give a demonstration to all of you as to how to execute a SYN flood attack against the victim's computer using Metasploit. And I'm going to use Backtrack for this demonstration. From the previous lecture onwards, I've started showing you a little bit of Backtrack. I like to continue doing that. I'll try to show you a little bit of Backtrack in every single lecture of AFCH, because I think Backtrack or Linux gives you much more power and control over the type of data packets you create or the type of attack that you execute against the victim's computer. So we'll just have to wait for this Backtrack to open up on my computer. As you know, it takes up a lot of memory, and I'm running a large presentation as well. I may have to just crash it and start it again. Because VMware wasn't really responding to me anymore. Alright, so I open up VMware Player and let me start Backtrack all over again. Now specifically the SYN flooding module of Metasploit is definitely much easier to use on Backtrack than it is on Windows. So if you are trying to use or execute a SYN flood attack using Metasploit, definitely use Backtrack. As you can see, I'm using the VMware version of Backtrack. Backtrack is now booting. It'll take a minute or so for it to completely boot. Alright, so it is asking me to enter my username and password. So I've successfully managed to log in. And I want to open up the graphical user interface. So let me type startx. So Backtrack will now start on my computer. And now that Backtrack is started on my computer, let me go ahead and open up the Metasploit software. So MSF console is the software that we're trying to open. Now while that is opening up, let us look at the module name. It's auxiliary/DOS, auxiliary/tcp/synflood. So I'm just going to write that down, auxiliary/DOS/TCP/synflood. Okay. So Metasploit will takes a few seconds for it to load. So let's just wait, because it has so many different modules to load. It takes some time. Alright, so I think Metasploit is now finally loaded. Now if you don't remember the name of a particular module, the best thing to do is just use the search command. So I'm going to type search synflood, and if you look at the screen, within a few seconds it tells me the name of the module. The name of the module is auxiliary/DOS/TCP/synflood. So I'm going to type the use command. Use auxiliary/DOS/TCP/synflood. Alright, so now that the module is loaded in the memory, let me type the show options command. Now, so these are the options that you need to kind of specify. So let's just use the ones that are required. So yes. So timeout, that has already been specified as 500. Snaplen, which is already specified as 65535. Remote port is port 80. We just need to specify the remote host. So I want to, for this demonstration, just attack, say, ankitfaria.com. So I just open up another terminal window and I type ping ankitfaria.in. So I'm doing so that I can find out the IP address of the website. So it's 65.254.248.218. So I'm going to type the set rhost command. So set rhost to 65.254.248.218. Press enter. So it says the remote host has also been specified. And now I type the exploit command and hopefully it will run. So if you notice now, it is synflooding the victim's computer on port 80. As simple as that. So Metasploit is extremely easy to execute, and it allows you to execute not only simple stuff like port scanning or OS fingerprinting that we saw last time, but it also allows you to carry out more sophisticated attacks like synflooding attacks. So I'm just going to open up Metasploit again. So that is how you can use Metasploit to execute a synflooding attack. Another type of attack that you can execute, specifically DOS attack, that you can execute using Metasploit is something known as the Apache Killer DOS attack. It is a DOS attack that affects Apache web servers that are older than the version 2.2.20. So basically, during network reconnaissance and information gathering, if you find that the victim is running an Apache web server that is older than the version 2.2.20, then you can actually use this Apache Killer attack or the Apache Range Header DOS attack. What it does is, this type of attack exists due to the way Apache web servers handle requests by criminals for overlapping ranges of data. It causes significant increase in the memory/CPU usage of the victim. And the way you can run this command or this attack is using the use command. So let me once again show you a demonstration. So I'm going to search for Apache DOS. So within this few seconds in the search results, it showed me the Apache Killer attack. So it's the name of the attack is Apache/DOS/HTTP/ Apache _range _DOS. So I'm going to type the command info. So info command is a new command that I don't think we have seen before. Info basically gives you information about a particular attack. Right? So I type info auxiliary /DOS /HTTP /Apache _range _DOS. Well, I misspelled it, which is why it showed me the error. So let me correct the spelling. Alright, so I press enter. It says that, the description says that the byte range filter in the Apache HTTP server 2.0.x through 2.0.64 and 2.2.x through 2.2.19 allows remote attackers to cause a denial of service, that is memory and CPU consumption, via a range header that expresses multiple overlapping ranges. The exploit is called Apache Killer. So Metasploit is not only great in terms of it allows you to execute an attack against the victim's computer, it's also great for you to just learn about different types of attacks. So if you had just heard of, okay, there's something known as Apache Killer, but if you didn't know what it did, you can just read the description, or at the bottom it has more links to various websites that contain more information about this particular type of attack. Right? So that's the Apache Killer DOS attack that is possible using Metasploit. Now once again, this particular attack is a great example or great testimony to the fact that information gathering and network reconnaissance is an extremely important step in every hacker's bid to try and hack into the victim's computer. Now similarly, there are DOS attacks available against other FTP software, like FileZilla is a popular FTP server for Windows platforms. There are 2 exploit modules in Metasploit that can be used to execute a DOS attack against some versions of the FileZilla server. For example, you have auxiliary /DOS /Windows /FTP /FileZilla _admin _user, or you have FileZilla _server _port. So depending upon what kind of DOS attack you want to execute, you can choose either of these Metasploit modules, then set the remote host to the victim's IP address and type exploit or type the run command. As simple as that. So as you can clearly see, DOS attacks are extremely dangerous types of attacks. They're very easy to execute. Absolutely anybody can execute them. But at the same time, there are solutions available. Because DOS attacks have been around for a very long time. So nowadays, if you are a criminal and if you want to crash the victim's computer, or if you want to execute something like a DOS attack against a victim, then you need to execute something known as a distributed denial of service attack or a distributed DOS attack. So what exactly is a distributed DOS attack or a DDoS attack, and why are they considered to be even more dangerous than a typical DOS attack? See, what happens in a distributed DOS attack is very simple. In a DOS attack, there is one criminal, one victim, or there is one attacker, one victim. In a DDoS attack, there are hundreds of attackers, or rather thousands of attackers, and there is one victim. So imagine, coming back to the example of Colasoft Packet Builder. So in a regular DOS attack, I use Colasoft Packet Builder to attack, say, the victim's computer. Right? So the victim may or may not be able to protect itself against that attack. But what if I actually tell hundreds of my friends to execute the same attack at this very same time against the very same victim? Then it becomes a DDoS attack, because now there are hundreds or rather thousands of attackers and one victim. So that's a classic example of a DDoS attack, or a very simple example of a DDoS attack. There are even more sophisticated examples of DDoS attacks that we'll be discussing later on today. So the objective behind a DOS attack is to flood the victim with as much data as possible. However, DOS attack can inflict limited damage. Since typically in a DOS attack, there is one criminal, that is one attacker, and one victim. This is where a DDoS attack comes into the picture and can be even more effective. DDoS attacks or distributed DOS attacks are multi-tiered, multi-layered, sophisticated, modern-day versions of regular DOS attacks, where the criminal first hacks into and takes control over a less sophisticated network, which are then called zombies, and then uses all those computers on the network to attack the target computer. So see, a very simple example of a DOS attack is, I ask all my friends, so I have 100 friends, all my friends are now, I've asked all of them to attack the same victim at the same time. So that's a very simple example of a DDoS attack. Another example is that I am a criminal, I don't have any friends, so what I'll do is I'll hack into, say, my college network. My college network has 1,000 computers. So I have hacked into the college network, so I install a zombie or something like a Trojan on all those 1,000 computers. So now I can control those 1,000 computers. So I send a command to those 1,000 computers and ask each and every one of those 1,000 computers to simultaneously attack the victim computer. So that's another example of a DDoS attack. And there are tools available to execute DDoS attacks. You have tools like Tribal Flood Network or TFN, Tribal Flood Network or TFN. You have Trino, that is TRIN00. TRIN00. Then you have Stacheldraht and many others. So DDoS attacks can not only be executed against using such tools, they can also be executed using viruses, worms, trojans, and other malware infections. Now, DDoS attacks are great, but nowadays you have something even more sophisticated than DDoS attacks. You have something known as reflective DDoS attacks. So what exactly are reflective DDoS attacks and what makes them so dangerous? Now, reflective DDoS attacks is basically a technique in which the attacker will send an infinite number of SYN packets to a large popular website, like say google.com, from the spoofed IP address of the victim. Let me actually explain this by drawing a diagram in Notepad. So imagine the following scenario. You and I are friends, but secretly, I don't like you. I want to crash your computer, but I don't want you to find out that it was me. So you and I are friends, secretly I don't like you, I want to crash your computer, but I don't want you to find out that it was me. So what do? That is where reflective DDoS attacks are so useful. So in a reflective DDoS attack, what you really need to do is very simple. Basically, the attacker will send infinite connection requests or SYN packets to some large website like google.com. Right? So the attacker is sending infinite SYN packets to google.com. However, what is unique is the fact that the attacker is not using their own IP address, but actually using the spoofed IP of victim to send these data packets. So essentially, the attacker is sending infinite SYN packets which are spoofed using from the IP address of the victim to google.com. So attacker is sending infinite spoofed SYN packets from the victim's IP address to google.com. Now what will happen is Google will have to send back infinite SYN ACK packets. To who? To the victim. Because in step 1, the attacker sent infinite SYN packets to google.com from the spoofed IP of the victim. So in step 2, Google will send back infinite SYN ACK packets not to the attacker but to the victim. So now what will happen is, if the victim receives infinite SYN ACK packets from google.com, at some point of time, all the bandwidth of the victim get used up, and as a result, the victim's computer will either become very slow, the connection will become very slow, or the victim will get disconnected from the internet, or the victim will not be able to access anything on the internet normally. And the best part is, when the victim investigates as to what exactly is going on his computer, the victim will find out that google.com is attacking him. So victim will be very confused as to why is google.com attacking me. Because the victim can run, say, a packet sniffer or some kind of data analysis tool, and it will tell the victim that all the packets are actually coming from google.com. But in reality, the victim has no idea that the attacker is actually executing this whole attack. So that is the beauty of reflective DDoS attacks. So a reflective DDoS attack is basically a technique in which the attacker sends infinite number of SYN packets or connection requests to a large popular website from the spoofed IP address of the actual target computer or the actual victim. The popular website replies to all the spoofed SYN data packets with the replies which are then sent to the actual target or the victim. The actual victim now thinks that google.com or the large website is attacking it and not you. And how do you execute a reflective DDoS attack? All you got to do is make use of a packet generator. A packet generator. So that is the beauty of a reflective DDoS attack. Now DDoS attacks or reflective DDoS attacks have become so dangerous that I like to actually share with all of you a real life example from Eastern Europe. So in Eastern Europe, there's a very small country called Estonia. And Estonia on the east has Russia. So compared to Russia, Estonia is a very, very small country. Now a few years ago, what happened was, the Russian military decided to attack Estonia. And it was not a traditional attack where you require bombs and tanks and airplanes and soldiers. This was a cyber terrorism attack where essentially the Russian military or the Russian intelligence executed a DDoS attack against Estonia. And the DDoS attack was so successful that for many weeks, not continuously but off and on, over a period of multiple weeks, the entire country of Estonia was disconnected from the internet. So imagine walking into an ATM machine, putting in your ATM card into the machine, and it will show you an error saying that no network connectivity. So you're not able to withdraw money from your own bank account. You then go to the bank branch. Even they require internet access or network connectivity to the central server. So even they say that, sorry, our systems are down, you cannot withdraw money. The air traffic controllers, they are no longer able to communicate because there is no network connectivity on the internet, or there is no internet in the entire country. So transportation links, the banking system, personal emails, mobile phones, everything that required internet access stopped working in Estonia. So that is the power of a DDoS attack. Even till today, the Russian intelligence or the military does not admit that they executed the attack, but a lot of people know that it was them. So cyber terrorism warfare has become the new type of warfare that can happen between different countries. So if it has happened in Estonia, there is no reason why it cannot happen anywhere else. Now, I like to actually talk a little bit about another